Welcome to Success Weekly with James Tharris, a weekly dose of thought-provoking ideas and helpful tips on improving your mindset. And now, here's your host, James Tharris.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Success Weekly. I'm your host, James Tharris, and today I am going to take on the task of trying to decipher the meaning of life. Wow. What a question for the ages. That question has probably been asked ever since Adam and Eve could speak. Honestly, what is the meaning of life? Well, I'm going to attempt to answer that for you in a little bit of a prepared speech and then some thrown in thoughts on the side as well. So let me begin with this. Who were Monty Python, Viktor Frankl, and Socrates? Do you know who they are? Do you know who they were, or rather? Well, Monty Python was a British comedy group who created comedic skits on television and the big screen and paved the way for TV shows like Saturday Night Live. See, according to Monty Python, the meaning of life is try and be nice to people, avoid eating fat, read a good book every now and then, get some walking in, and try to live together in peace and harmony with people of all creeds and nations. And of course, have a good laugh every so often too. Now, Viktor Frankl was an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist who spent time in 3 different concentration camps during World War II. And he also wrote the best-selling book, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor said this about the meaning of life. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. And then Socrates. Socrates was a Greek philosopher who lived in Athens. He believed that the meaning of life was to live your life without bothering yourself with pleasantries and trinkets. He constantly questioned people, even random people in the middle of town square, which eventually led to his death. So I ask you, if you were placed in front of a firing squad and told to give your thoughts on what the meaning of life is in 2 sentences, what might you say? Stop and think about that for a second. What might you say? Well, regardless of how you answer, I've got a couple of thoughts on this for you. Or I'm going to make a couple of points here, and then we'll see where this goes. So point 1 is, life is what you make it. People view life differently. Ask a person who lives in an expensive Ask a person who lives in an expensive suburb in any major city, and ask them what the meaning of life is, and they'll give you one answer. Ask a person who lives in maybe a little bit less affluent area of town, and they're likely to give you a completely different answer. In fact, if you just ask 2 different people from anywhere that question, you're likely to get 2 different answers. Some view life as merely something to endure. You pay taxes, get old, pay more taxes, and then die. While others believe that the meaning of life is to keep trying until we get it right, like a reincarnation, for example. Still, others believe that the meaning of life is just to have fun and be happy. I don't think there's anything right or wrong when it comes to any of those answers. I don't think there are any right or wrong answers, in fact. When it comes to the meaning of life, I used to think I had it all figured out. I remember in my youth thinking that I knew everything, and probably like many of you listening to this. I used to confidently espouse my thoughts on life after some of my martial arts classes as a beginning instructor. It's a great philosophical question, and I used to think that it was fairly simple. Then as I got older and experienced some of life's more challenging moments, I began to question whether or not my definition of the meaning of life was accurate at all. I realized that this must be just what all of those who came before me had gone through, and though as I continue to get older, I've had some challenging experiences, and I realized that my original thoughts on the meaning of life were pretty much the same, actually. It's amazing how a little failure in one's life can so profoundly affect their philosophies on life. Would you be interested in knowing what my answer to that question is? What is the meaning of life? Well, I'm glad that you feel that way. Otherwise, this podcast would be over about now. Okay, so here's point 2. The meaning of life, in my opinion, is to explore the boundaries of our potential. Explore the boundaries of our potential. I believe that humans are similar to nature. Have you ever heard the term human nature? Of course you have. Trees and plants are part of nature too. They are very, very similar to humans. And isn't it funny that we both depend on each other for existence? See, plants depend on humans for carbon dioxide, and humans depend on plants for oxygen. Kind of a symbiotic relationship. Now, a plant begins as a seed. Whatever that seed is, it becomes, unless acted on by some outside force. If the seed has an opportunity to germinate and sprout, its mission then is to grow as big and strong as it possibly can, determined largely by its DNA structure, of course. So if it's a California redwood, we can expect that it's going to be very tall and very strong when it finishes growing. What a shame it would be to see a California redwood only reach 3 feet and then die within a few years. No! California redwoods are the world's tallest trees, reaching peaks of 360 feet. They average 500 to 700 years and are reported to be able to live 2,000 to live to 2,000 years or longer in some cases. I've yet to see a redwood that decided it was only going to grow to 3 feet and stop there. Yet we as humans do this, metaphorically speaking, all the time. See, we're all born with the seeds of greatness within us. And it's my contention that the meaning of life is to explore the boundaries of our human potential. If you've got your health and a reasonable amount of youth and vitality, then you should be able to make something of yourself in this world. Letting ourselves go to waste is a pitiful shame, if we're capable of making the most of it. Here's a question to ponder for a moment. When do we feel our absolute best? When somebody gives us a handout? Or is it when we help someone else with a problem or challenge and are able to feel the joy of giving and serving? See, I contend it's the latter. Anytime I can help somebody do something that they didn't think that they could do, I'm serving my purpose. And I tell you what, I feel fantastic after helping them get to the point that they can do it for themselves, whatever it may be. So what does one California redwood do with what it's given? Well, it provides oxygen to the planet, shelter to the many animals that live in the trees and forest, and even gives life when it is cut down and used as wood for building materials and to start fires with. But it also does something that every other tree does. It spreads additional seeds that in turn grow into more magnificent redwoods to carry on the work started by the very first California redwood. Therefore, it's my opinion on the meaning of life. My opinion on the meaning of life is to see just how far each of us can personally grow and develop, and then create and make room for a new generation, and to help us and to help guide them on the path to improve upon the work that we've personally done. And that's really what I think about the meaning of life and what it's all about. We really have that huge responsibility to do all that we can in our own lives as an example to other people, first of all, and to really reach our true potential, to do what we were designed to do. You know, when we're born, the moment we come out of the womb, we're growing. We're also dying the moment we come out of the womb. So we have to make sure that we make the most of what goes in between that little dash, the dash between those 2 years, the year of our birth and the year of our death. And we have to see just how robust we can make ourselves and grow in life, and how successful we can become. And keep in mind, success is different for every person. Everybody listening to this podcast has a different idea of what it means to be successful. Some people, they show their level of success by how big and strong they can make their bodies. Bodybuilders come to mind. You know, people that climb rocks and climb summits on mountains and Mount Everest and things. Their mission is to see just how much they can endure and how high they can climb and not give up when so many other people give up, or overcoming, like in the case of Mount Everest, over 200 people have died in the pursuit of trying to do that. So why do people continue to do that every year? Because it's a way of pushing themselves, a way of challenging themselves to see if they can overcome the odds, because the odds are stacked greatly against them when they set out for climbing the tallest mountain in the world. But so many people every year attempt it. And of course, a few select people actually succeed at it. There are a lot more people that actually start out on it than those who actually make it to the top, and that's for a variety of reasons. So that's just another example of somebody trying to make the most of their lives. And think about how each of us is inspired when we hear those harrowing stories of overcoming these odds and doing fantastic things. People do that in school with some of these scholars and like Einstein. Look at the things that he was able to do. And what's the other, Stephen Hawking? I mean, think of these guys. The level of intelligence that they've reached, it's inspiring to us. Look at what Bill Gates did with the computer, the PC, and what Steve Jobs and Wozniak did with Apple, and look at how that inspires us and what we've been able to do to build upon those very first models of the computer that's come out. It's mind-boggling what we can do with computers and with telephones and things these days. What if those people had decided they were just going to live in a cave somewhere and mind their own business? What if those people decided that they weren't going to inspire humanity, or if they weren't going to go on and achieve things? Right? And then some people view success as how much money they have in the bank. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as they don't allow money to absorb their entire life to the detriment of those around them and their families. As long as they're doing that and using the money they're making to help improve their families' lives and maybe leave something for the next generation. I see nothing wrong with that. So you have to decide, what is it you are designed to do? For me, I was designed to teach martial arts. I was designed to teach something. I'm designed as a teacher, as an orator, as a deep thinker, to think about things and mix things up in my world, and that's meaning my sphere of influence, and get people to think on a different level about things, maybe think about everyday things in a different mindset. So that's what I'm called to do, and so that's why I do it. I don't know when I'm going to stop or when I'm going to retire or if I'm ever going to retire from living. I mean, that's just I can't fathom retiring and just doing nothing all day long. So I've got to have a purpose and continue to achieve it. I don't exactly know how successful I'm going to become before I die, but I'm going to do everything I can to try and achieve that goal. And that, to me, folks, that is what the meaning of life is all about. And I challenge you to think about it like that and maybe up the ante a little bit in your own life. Maybe you've not been trying to achieve your true potential. And hopefully I can inspire you to want to move down that path. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, please like and share it with friends, and let me know your thoughts in the comments in Facebook and wherever else you may find this podcast. So until next week, this is James Theris saying be successful in your life.
That's all for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Success Weekly. Do you have an idea you'd like James to talk about in an upcoming episode? Post your comments and be sure to share this podcast with friends.